At this point, I'm convinced that Mondstadt was just a figment of our imaginations. It's a fever dream. It doesn't exist. It's not a real thing. It was never a real region. That never happened, did it? There's no way Mondstadt was a real thing. You can't convince me it ever existed. It's such a weird thing. I have characters on my account that say they hail from Mondstadt, but what is that place? It's like, it's somewhere in the back of my mind somewhere, but I don't know. What is that? But what happened to Mondstadt? Okay, ye old Mondstadt, the place it all began, right? I remember way back when I very first started the game. I remember my first day of the game. I remember starting at the beach and, Paimon was there and climbing the little wall and getting to our first Tower of the Seven and getting to Mondstadt, the city, and meeting characters. I remember meeting Amber. All of our experiences in Genshin Impact are different from one another, but one thing that we all have in common is the fact that Mondstadt is where our very earliest memories begin, right? Like, that's literally not debatable. You can't debate me on that. That's where the game began, dude. But yeah. The first two opening regions, Mondstadt and Liyue, that was a nice combination. We had two regions to open up with, and that was a lot of map to play around in for the first year. Plus, we got Dragonspine, which was a Mondstadt expansion, so there was that. But after that, nothing's ever happened with Mondstadt. We've gotten Inazuma, we've gotten Sumeru, we've gotten Fontaine, now we're in Natlan, and Mondstadt ain't doing nothing. What's going on with Mondstadt? I don't get it. Every other region has had expansions. We have had the Chasm with the Liyue, and we've had Chinyu Vale, so it's had double expansions, an off-map expansion and an actual on-map expansion, so Liyue is eating good, you know what I mean? Inazuma, it really hasn't had anything new either, but it's a pretty big area, plus it has Inkanamiya, so there's Inkanamiya for you. Sumeru, it hasn't done any major expansions either, but it's still kind of new, so I'm not going to worry about Sumeru. It did get the northern coastline, which was pretty terrible. Oh, whoa. I actually did a video about how empty the northern coast of Sumeru is, but, that's whatever. And then, Fontaine is too new as well, plus we're in Natlan right now. But the fact that there's so much more in just straight up base Natlan than Mondstadt is kind of shocking. I wouldn't say shocking necessarily, but it's kind of crazy that Mondstadt has had no additions other than Dragonspine, which was 1.2 anyway, so it's like it was so near the beginning of the game that anybody who wasn't there for the beginning of the game probably doesn't even consider Dragonspine to be an addition to Mondstadt. Dragonspine is just kind of there, It's just there. It's just sitting there. Not doing anything, kind of like Mondstadt as a whole. And that's just one part of the bigger Mondstadt picture right now. The fact that it's really just kind of sitting there, on top of the fact that it's not expanding, like nothing is happening with it. It's not getting bigger, there's no expansions, there's nothing happening in it, and it's just there. We spent a whole lot of time there. Well, no, we didn't even spend a whole lot of time there. When you think about it, the prologue chapter was like the shortest chapter by far. It's not even close. We did the prologue and then we just noped out of Mondstadt for like forever. We have come back for some events and everything, and that's alright. We had, what was it, Wine Laser Fest? That was cool. And we've had some, where's Ludi Heart past him? What is Ludi Heart? We've never seen Ludi Heart past him. Why did they even name drop it if they're not gonna do anything with it? The heck is that? Oh, we have a Ludi Heart past him. Oh, that sounds cool. and then nothing happens ever. Was it reworked into that other thing? What's the other event? The Wind Bloom Festival? I'm pretty sure it's the Wind Bloom Festival. But anyway, you see what I'm saying here. Mondstadt is simply forgotten. And that's what it all comes down to. It's just a forgotten region. And I mean, if we were just like a year or two into the game, I would say that it's easier to, ignore. But dude, we are in Natlin right now. Let me repeat that. We're in Natlin. 6 out of the 7 nations that were named at the beginning of the game are in the game. And Mondstadt is just not doing anything. Not like the other regions. I mean, okay, so let's look at Leeway. Like, if we were to look at Leeway, it came out at the same time as Mondstadt, which was the launch of the game. But again, Leeway at least got the Chasm, so that's one thing. Since then it's gotten Chinyu Vale, so that's cool. And every year the Lantern Rite has made a huge deal, like it's the big deal. So I mean, Leeway's doing pretty good, right? I would say other than Mondstadt, Inazuma is also kind of like dead. Yeah, nothing happens there. Wow. Actually, Inazuma's pretty freaking dead now that I think about it. But one thing Inazuma does get that Mondstadt hasn't gotten is characters. I mean, that's another big thing. Aside from the region being dead in pretty much every aspect, like not expanding and just nothing really happening there significant, Mondstadt doesn't get new characters. It just doesn't. At least in the case of other regions, like old regions like Leeway and Inazuma, we get characters, you know what I mean? We have, I don't know, what's the most recent Inazuma character? Maybe Kirara, who's a 4-star? Is that the most recent Inazuma character? Really? I'm trying to think here. I think it is Kirara. Or you can kind of count Chiori because she's kind of, I mean, she's a Fontaine character, but she's from Inazuma. So that counts, maybe. And then as far as Leeway goes, Leeway gets characters all the time. Like, Leeway's not starving for characters. In just the past year, it got Shan Yun, Gaming, and it's about to get Lan Yan. So that's 3. But now, when you look at Mondstadt, I think the most recent character was Mika. And that's kind of it, but that's just talking about 4 stars. When was the last time we had a 5-star Mondstadt character? I'll give you a second to think about that. Dude, it was Eula. It was Eula! That is insane! She came out during the 1.x cycle. I think it was 1.5. And the fact that we went all through 2.x, 3.x, 4.x, and there's no new Mondstadt character? Wow. How is that even possible? So, I mean, even if we have gotten a character or two from Mondstadt, that's just talking about 4 stars. They don't care about Mondstadt 5 stars. Those characters just don't exist anymore. And that's so weird. It's so strange. Like, how can you go 4 years without a single Mondstadt character? It just boggles my mind, dude. And I've actually heard people talk about this before, and some say they believe that they're trying to hold out a little bit because they're expecting that after everything is done with the 7 nations that it'll all tie back into Mondstadt, and then maybe we'll go back there and get some more characters later on. And like, that sounds cool and all, but you do not have to wait through all 7 nations just to make a Mondstadt character, 5-star character. That is not a good excuse. Like, if they want to wait that long in order to throw out a whole slew of Mondstadt characters, like a whole bunch, then I would understand that. But to use that excuse or that reasoning to justify not putting out a single 5-star Mondstadt character in all this time, nah, nope. I'm not gonna accept that. Nope. That is not a reason for me. I can't do that. I don't accept that. Especially because imagine this hypothetical 7.x or 8.x patches where they're just throwing us a whole lot of Mondstadt characters back to back to back, and it's like we're just now meeting all these Mondstadt characters. And that is not going to be believable. I'm sorry. Like, they just come out of nowhere. We're meeting all these dudes we never met before. That won't fly. You kind of need to sprinkle characters in every now and then to make it believable that there are still characters out there to meet. Because it's gonna be kind of weird if we get to that point and all of a sudden there's Mondstadt characters flying at us left and right, and it's like, oh, where were you? Why am I suddenly now coincidentally meeting all of you at once? Unless they're like coming back with Varka or something, you know what I mean? Like, they could do something like that. And that would be the actual good explanation. But outside of that explanation, that wouldn't fly. That wouldn't. Nope. Especially because that's already kind of hard to believe when they just insert one new character into a region, and it's like this character comes in and everyone all of a sudden knows them. Everyone's name dropping the character, and this character is super cool, and everyone's friends with this new character. And it's like, no one ever mentioned this guy before. You just came out of nowhere, and suddenly you're the coolest dude that everyone knows and loves. Yeah, please. That is not how that works. And so, I just can't even imagine that if they happen to do that with, 3, 4, 5 brand new Mondstadt characters all at once, and no one has ever mentioned them before. Jean's never said anything. Amber, no one. Yeah, sure. Yeah, we shouldn't do that. They should periodically release them a little bit over time to keep up the believability of meeting new characters. Because otherwise, it's gonna be just like they just kind of just shove this person in here that no one ever mentioned. Sure. So it's like the region itself is underutilized. They don't get any new 5-star characters, and it just feels like it's forgotten. The old Mondstadt is forgotten, and it doesn't make it any better that there's one little replayability for older regions, because once you've cleaned them out, which is, a topic I discussed a long time ago. But on top of that, Mondstadt is a very simplistic region and pretty small compared to the other ones now. So there's like little reason to just go back there. So you're not even really looking at Mondstadt nowadays. It's not only is there nothing in there to do objective based, but there's not even like an elective or optional reason to go back to Mondstadt either. And I'm sure people might say that goes for other regions too, but I mean, at least in the case of other regions, like say Liyue or Inazuma, they release new characters, so sometimes you need to go back to those areas to farm either bosses, or like in the case of a new Inazuma character, you might need to farm the hand guards or something, or now that we have new Liyue characters, you might need to go to Chinyu Vale to farm some stuff there, you know what I mean? So it's a very minor like task, but it does give you reason to go back there. I can't think of any reason to go back to Mondstadt though, unless you're a new player who just now pulled a Mondstadt character for your very first time or something like that. But I don't know. It's not even that, it's not that big or anything in itself. It's just kind of a wide open rolling field, a few cliff sides and some forests. And I mean, that's Mondstadt for you. Every region has its own geography and all of that, so I'm not saying that's bad for Mondstadt, but in the context of what every other region has now, and Liyue now has expansions, and it has all these cliff sides, and it has the chasm, and it has Chinyu Vale, and Inazuma has all these distinct islands and it has its own sub-region. And Sumeru has giant deserts and big jungles and rainforests, and Fontaine is all underwater and above water and all around the place. And even Natlin now has all these distinct, like, different areas, and Mondstadt has, like, rolling fields and one big cold mountain. And that's Mondstadt for you. That's basically it. And there's little reason to go back through any of it. Like I said, there's little reason to go back through most of the old regions, but at least you can say that sometimes you might need to go back to farm something. I mean, I don't have so many materials that that's not even a thing, but I can see the case being made for that, at least. But there's like nothing in Mondstadt. And so, I don't know, it just feels so forgotten. And it's really interesting because we have heard of, say, Dorman Port. But where is Dorman Port? When are we getting the Dorman Port expansion? We need it so bad. That should breathe a lot of life into Mondstadt. And hopefully it does, but like we've been hearing about Dorman Port now every year. Oh, it's finally coming, and then it doesn't. It reminds me of Celestia. Everyone's always like, Celestia. And Celestia doesn't happen. It never happens. So, I don't know. Yeah, we could really use a Mondstadt map expansion. We could really use new Mondstadt 5-star characters. And overall, we could just really use more love to Mondstadt. Mondstadt could use the love. Because it is where the journey began, and it's still home in my heart. But I don't know, man, like, Fontaine, that kind of became my new home. The old home wasn't getting any renovations. So, you know? It is interesting to note, though, that all of the in-game modes, or like extra modes, are in Mondstadt. That's pretty interesting when you consider that. The Spiral Abyss is over in the Musgrave Island, and then you have Theater in the library, and you have TCG in the Cat's Tail. So that's something, I guess. I guess Mondstadt can just be where we go to play in-game stuff. Oh boy, whatever. In any case, I just hope to see Mondstadt get some love, and I want to see it get some love before the end of the game. Just give me Dorman Port and a couple of 5 stars and give it some more story material, and then I think we'll be good. Because the most time I've spent in Mondstadt probably for this entire year was just to gather footage for this video.